This has very fast become my all-time favourite swimming pool across the world. Welcome to Beirut in Lebanon. Perhaps for most of last century, Beirut and Lebanon were the bywords for conflict. But when you go back even further, this country has within it cities that claim to be amongst the oldest half dozen in the world, some of the earliest human settlement, and some of the finest Roman ruins. Put preconceptions aside, let's do a quick tour of Lebanon. This beautiful garden is in the Jetta Grotto in Lebanon, a little bit north of Beirut. It's a beautiful garden, and the whole Jetta Grotto is stunning, with beautiful stalactites and stalagmites, one of the largest underground cave systems in the world, with one of the largest stalactites in the world. G'day, I'm in Byblos, the biblical town of Gebal. It's about, 40 kilometres north of Beirut, or about an hour and a half's drive by some pretty nasty traffic. And this one town in many ways represents the history of the Mediterranean. Archaeologists say that there's been habitation here for at least 7,000, possibly 8,000 years. By the 3rd millennium BC, this was the busiest port in all of the Mediterranean, controlled by the Phoenicians. And although it's hard to determine exactly how our modern alphabet came to be, the scientists believe, the archaeologists believe, that this town is one of the potential places where the modern alphabet was created in or around the 2nd millennium BC. There's also a beautiful ruin of an old Roman theatre, and these walls are the walls of a Crusader castle built 910 years ago in 1104, in part using old Roman columns as the headers for the wall. And this is one of the places that claims to be amongst the 2, 3 or 4 oldest human population centres, cities, known. So in all this history, did I forget to mention the Greeks? After all, it was the Greeks that changed the name of this city to Byblos in 333 BC. Some bloke named Alex. You know, I feel for the Lebanese. Here I am sitting in a small old Roman theatre, overlooking a beautiful sunset in a town that has been ruled by Phoenicians, Persians, Arabs, Greeks, Romans. A town in which potentially the Phoenicians invented the modern alphabet, which has all this great history. And there are bugger all tourists. And there are bugger all tourists because people are scared to come to Lebanon, particularly with what's happening next door in Syria. And if the Bosnians ever thought that they were victims as people inhabiting a battlefield across which people have fought for millennia, spare a thought for the Lebanese. Everyone, including the Lebanese, have fought here for thousands of years, and every time it looks like peace is about to settle, someone else comes in and whacks them over the head. And just think about the poor buggers today. 3/4 of their land border is with Syria, with Islamic State wanting to come in. And the only other bit is with Israel, our sworn enemy. But at least the other bit has that. As you hit South Lebanon, the feeling of the place really changes. A lot more pictures of sheikhs, a lot more Islamic paraphernalia around, and of course there's the UN peacekeeping mission, UNFIL. I'm now in Tyre. Tyre is an old Roman town built on a Greek one, built on a Phoenician one, built on an Egyptian one. The road that I'm walking down was paved by the Romans about 2,000 years ago, but there's been settlement in this town since 2750 BC. And it's in southern Lebanon. If central Lebanon has no tourists, southern Lebanon has even less because there's great fear here about, well, predominantly an Israeli attack or a Hezbollah attack on Israel. Who fires first? Who knows these days? Anyway, this is another example of magnificent Lebanon, great Roman history, and if you like this sort of stuff, you can wander it all by yourself. I do like history because amongst all of the things you start to ask yourself, who walked down the same street that you're walking down now? Emperor Hadrian walked down this very street on these very stones. I'm now walking down the town centre footpath, raised above the road in front of the monumental arch, and lining it all the shops that you could imagine would have lined the side of the road here, leading towards the Hippodrome, where all the entertainment would have taken place. You can just imagine, can't you, Emperor Hadrian coming down the road through the monumental arch and then swinging a left-hand turn to go in here, which is the Hippodrome. I'm now underneath the stands of the Hippodrome, and as you walk underneath there are all these little shop spaces where they would have sold the Roman equivalent of Coke and chips and a 4 and 20 pie. I love these old stadia. You can just feel the footsteps on game day. And as you walk up the stairs to the stands, it doesn't feel too much different from mounting the top of the Great Southern Stand, except there's 2,000 years of difference in the construction. Yeah, it's a 2,000-year-old column. Sun's about to go down, and here we are in a 2,000-year-old hippodrome. Roman chariot racing track, essentially. Flat down that end, curved down that end, and you can just imagine Charlton Heston riding around. There's a whole tourist infrastructure built here entire. Plenty of room for cafes, restaurants, museums, shops, and it's supposed to be that. The problem is, it's missing just tourists. It's not because the attraction's no good, the attraction is magnificent. But who the heck wants to come to Lebanon right now? Think about what Lebanon could do if it got its politics sorted out. I mean, this is the Mediterranean coast, which on the other side, with the sun on your back, people pay a fortune to sit on stones in Nice. Or you could see the same view, but with the sun warming your face here. Let me say this about Lebanon. It's not like the Islamophobes would have you think. Indeed, Lebanon is a mixed country, but people here are friendly, welcoming, smiling, always wanting to give a hand. And it's not like every second person's a member of Hezbollah that wants to bundle you off into a black van, dress you in an orange tracksuit, and then cut your head off in front of the cameras. It's not like that at all. It's well worth coming to. And to be on an open beach in a sunset in front of the Mediterranean, just down the road from 2,000-year-old ruins. If only they could get themselves fixed up and Syria left them alone and Israel left them alone and everyone left them alone to get on and just be Lebanon. Here's something special about Beirut. The old Roman town. A mosque, a church, a Catholic church and an Orthodox church. All together. This is St. George's Orthodox Church in the middle of Beirut. It's the first time I've seen Christian iconography with the scripts underneath written in Arabic. I'm standing outside the National Museum of Beirut. The National Museum sits right on the old green line that separated the warring factions during the Lebanon Civil War. And an amazing job was done when the war finished in 1991 to rebuild and reconstruct this museum. Inside there are a number of really beautiful examples from each of the epochs of history that are covered here. The Greeks, the Romans, the Phoenicians. Not only does this museum have some really fine examples of all the epochs of history, it was so well protected during the Civil War. I mean, this museum is right on the Green Line where the fighting factions fought. But brave actions of archaeologists building concrete blocks around all the really beautiful examples preserved them. And as if you didn't think Byblos had enough history, archaeologists believe that the start of the Copper Age is marked from Byblos because it's from there they found the first tools that were used in copper, fishing hooks. The bullet marks and the pock marks on the walls inside the museum show just how close the fighting came. In fact, the fighting was here. Despite the brave efforts of many of the archaeologists, some of the items in this museum were destroyed. While it may be over 20 years since the Civil War finished, and the hustle and bustle has well and truly returned back to Beirut, there is evidence both of ongoing construction, but also the remnants of the Civil War dotted throughout the city in pockmarked and damaged buildings. So how does one explain the Civil War here? Well, 18 religious groups, from Druze to Christians, both Catholic and Orthodox, Muslims, Shia and Sunni, and a whole bunch of others. The question isn't how did a civil war happen here, it's like, why didn't it? So go back to 1943. The French had the mandated territory of what is now Lebanon, given by the League of Nations. They agreed under pressure to withdraw. By 1949, the last of the French troops had left, but they'd left a constitution in which, at a roughly ratio of 6-5, the Christians dominated the Muslims in the parliament. That 6-5 ratio came from the 1932 census. Anyway, following the creation of Israel, there was a huge movement for pan-Arabism, and the Arabic Islamic parts of Lebanon wanted to push for and create pan-Arabism. The constitution, not only giving a majority to the Christians, also ensured that the president had to be Christian, and he refused. In 1958, he was pushing for another term when his current term expired. He'd earned a lot of enemies in the Islamic community because he didn't support the Pan-Arabist movement, and in panic he called in the United States. So with the help of 15,000 US troops, all of the anti-president stuff was quelled. There was a period of relative calm. However, the continued overflow of Palestinian refugees was upsetting the power balance inside Lebanon as the Islamic proportion of the population grew. It was 1975 in which the civil war really started, when a whole bunch of Christians murdered a busload of Muslims. The Islamic community, in retaliation, murdered a whole bunch of Christians, who in retaliation murdered a whole bunch more Muslims, and soon it became completely out of control, and one of the bloodiest conflicts ensued. Israel, supported by the United States, invaded from the south to protect their territory. Syria came in from the Syrian side to protect their interests, and you had a 15-year-long civil war as a result. Finally, the King of Morocco, King of Saudi Arabia, and the President of Algeria in 1990 proposed a comprehensive peace process that somehow worked. While I sit in this old Roman ruin and a fishing boat slowly makes its way to port as the sun sets over the Mediterranean. Time to say goodbye from Lebanon.